we just pray in our collect today that beholding his light, we might be strengthened to bear our cross. Forgive my play on words here, but the English language bear, B-E-A-R, accurately describes what Jesus meant to be calling us to take up our cross, to grab it, to touch it, to see it, to know where it is. But the word bear can also be spelled B-A-R-E. And isn't it true that we bury our cross? That we push it away, we don't want to look at it, because it's painful. And so we find all kinds of ways to stash it away so we don't have to deal with it. We keep it to ourselves. So before we can bear our cross, as Jesus said and as we have prayed, we must recover it or discover it, because we don't think about it. We're not attentive to our suffering. But does anybody not have a sense that there's suffering inside of you here? You didn't bring any suffering in with you today? So, in an attempt to respect our prayer, I want to invite you to take a moment to be with whatever suffering you brought with you today. If you have shoved your emotions down, it is probably for good reason. They are painful. Maybe you feel fear, maybe anxiety, maybe anger, maybe despair, maybe loneliness, maybe profound grief. Maybe you are haunted by alienation or feelings of abandonment. So I'm inviting you, if you are willing, to just take a minute of silence, which our psalm calls us to. Be silent and know that I am God, is the reading. And let those sufferings come to you, welcome them, invite them into this space and in this time. And we will then read the psalm again. But just take a moment right now. And as we're mindful of our struggles, our suffering, I want you to listen to the song one more time. God is for us a refuge and strength, a help in trouble, easily found. Therefore we shall not fear. Though the earth should change, though the mountains quiver in the heart of the sea, its waters roar and churn, the mountains tremble with its swell. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God will help her when the morning unfurls. The nations roar, the dominions quiver. God puts forth her voice, and the earth melts. The warrior protectrix is with us. A stronghold for us is the God of Rebekah's line. Come, behold the works of the fire of Sinai. See what desolation she has set on the earth. She makes wars cease to the end of the earth. She breaks the bow and shatters the spear. She burns chariots with fire. So be still and know that I am God. I'm exalted among the nations. I'm exalted in the earth. The warrior protectrix is with us. A stronghold for us is the God of Rebekah's line. Be still and know that I am God. In a time when we must act, we must also be still. We must not leave ourselves behind or be distracted from our strength, our beauty, our creativity, our passion. Our actions in the world will be ineffective if we ourselves are not solid, sovereign, and free. Thich Nhat Hanh says that when we stop, we return home to ourselves. But we run because we fear the pain that is within us. Who wants to run home or be home or stop and be with yourself? It's scary. You've heard my story before about going to the Hermitage with no internet, no phone service. Arriving, all I had was me for 4 days. The second I arrived, I was terrified. We're terrified of ourselves. Now you think about that for a moment. To really be and return to yourself. But it's what we need. Lest our efforts in the world are just surface, static. If this world, this country stops, it will have to look at our past to imagine a new future. Racism, sexism, ableism, classism, and every ism you can think of is what we bury. Oh, that was the past. It's in our culture. It's in our bodies. If we do not return there and understand that this suffering, the suffering we have caused, is very real. We must transform our suffering, or we will transmit it. If we're not transforming the suffering that is in us, we just go out there and we transmit more of it. Because we're not at peace. We don't feel self-compassion. So how can we walk up to somebody who makes us angry and change that from division into a compassionate conversation? It has to start with us. We avoid our pain, and it's exhausting. We want to take a nap. How many naps do you have now? Yeah. We're tired. We're exhausted. It's easy to be sleepy right now. Our gospel says that Peter and those with him were weighed down with sleep. Because they're on a mountaintop, and Jesus has a vision of that mountaintop that doesn't mesh with the disciples' vision. We're coming to the mountaintop. Their vision is, we're coming to the mountaintop because we're going to control this empire. And he's the one that's going to do it, not Jesus' vision. You know how painful that must have been for Jesus to put up with that. You know? Have you ever felt someone has expectations of you and it's not true to your authenticity. And so you live an untrue life. I relate to that. My mother, God rest her soul, she did her best. But she introduced me to Bishop Tom Shaw as, yes, this is our son, who we hoped would become a doctor. And I turned to the bishop and I said, yeah, but I had to deal with my own cancer first. Wow. And he knew exactly what I was talking about. I think all of us may have had expectations, disappointed somebody. Maybe it was a risk to be authentic to who you are and just move forward. Because if you're authentic, you threaten your attachments. And those attachments mean something to us. To not live up to somebody else's expectations. Aeschylus said, "He who learns must suffer. And even in our sleep, pain that cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart. And in our own despair against our will comes wisdom to us by the awful grace of God." Even in our sleep, we know it's there. Even in our weariness. So the disciples were sleepy, but they were awake enough to see the transfiguration. The transfiguration was not Jesus alone, but also Moses and Elijah. How they recognized them, I do not know.
Name tags.
Name tags.
Internet photos.
Yes, internet photos. I always ask questions like that. How do they know who those two were? But Moses represented the law or the past, and Elijah, the prophet, represents the future, or the vision of the future, and Jesus was there in the present moment, taking the past and the future and transfiguring it, not alone. So our transfiguration requires going into our past, if you will, understanding the pain that we bring along with us, the suffering that we bring along with us, and allowing that to transform our future, or taking the anxieties around that future, all those things we think we know are going to go. There's someone at the early service said, you know, when I'm in a tunnel and I see some light, I always think it's a train, you know, coming in. So with this light, which invites us to some level of journey back in the world, we don't stay on the mountaintop, we go back into the world, is what's actually good for us. We pray that we may take up the cross, but we don't want to. Well, let's be honest here. You ought to try being a salesman for that. Would you like to take up your cross today? But I suggest that by ignoring your cross, it doesn't take away the weight of it in your life. It keeps you from thriving, from an abundant life. So even if you don't want to look at it and push it away, tell it to go away, it weighs you down. That is the kind of cross, those are the kind of crosses in our life that we need to uncover, to bear in that way. To say, what is it that's bothering me? Why am I depressed? Why am I angry? Why did this trigger me? These are all pointers. But taking up your cross is an affirmative action, if you will. It's saying, now that I see it, let me touch it. Let me hold it. Let me feel the weight of it. And when we do that, we're moving that cross into an intimate relationship with God, who is there carrying a cross with us, alongside of us. It's your cross. What makes us sleepy is not taking up our cross, but ignoring it. Our exhaustion comes from the burdens in our story, both personal and corporate, that we bury or deny. Our sleepiness comes from avoidance, not awareness. So how can we bring awareness to the world if we do not have self-awareness? How can we heal the world if we do not attend to our own wounds? Please notice, Jesus does not say, take up his cross. He does not say, take up the cross of the world, or take up your neighbor's cross. He calls us to have the courage and faith to imagine our own lives transfigured, to take up our cross. And when our lives transfigure, we learn to be kind to ourselves, listen to ourselves, and generate compassion for ourselves. How many of you were taught growing up, here's how you have compassion for yourself? It's because there was pain. Or it was because somebody wasn't really being able to be present to us or help us with that. How many of you in church services learn that self-compassion is the name of the game? Or did you learn it's self-denial? It irks me that our prayer of confession, there's different versions of it. It's to confess that the sins we've committed to others and to God. But the biggest sins are against ourselves. We've swallowed the pill that God judges us, that God is not compassionate, that it's all our fault. Not true. That wasn't what Jesus was doing. We must not fear our inner struggle. We must trust it. We must pay attention to it. I mean, we're coming into Lent. We're going to take all those palms on Tuesday night at Shrove Tuesday, and we're going to burn them. Why would we do that? Because the celebration we had imagined, as the disciples had imagined, didn't turn out that way. God brought us to a deeper place, a deeper journey of getting in touch with our suffering and welcoming it. And it felt like our dreams turned into ashes. And so we take a bath in our ashes. We remember that. A.H. Almas puts it this way, and I love this. Your conflicts, all the difficult things, the problematic situations in your life are not chance or haphazard. It's not like we're unlucky. They are actually yours. They are specifically yours, designed specifically for you by a part of you that loves you more than anything else. The part of you that loves you more than anything else has created roadblocks to lead you to yourself. You're not going in the right direction unless there is something pricking you in the side, telling you, look here, this way. That part of you loves you so much that it doesn't want you to lose the chance. It will go to extreme measures to wake you up. It will make you suffer greatly if you don't listen. What else can it do? That is its purpose. That force within us doesn't let us off the hook. It is not our enemy, but a love that will not let us go. We've learned to be defensive to our suffering. And we had to, and it's okay, because we did it to survive, right? We learned how not to be vulnerable, because when we were vulnerable, we were crucified. We've learned not to share our weakness. We've learned not to talk to each other in an intimate way. We've learned all these behaviors, and they worked in the sense that we survived. But there's a wonderful saying that I want to end with, and that is that we became who we are in order to survive. But now is the time to become who we will be in order to thrive. That is the passageway. It is the only passageway into our story, through our story, embracing our suffering, learning how to be compassionate for it, and to be transfigured, to feel that river of gladness that flows right through all the tragedies and chaos that is in the world today. We need it, and we need to share it with the world, where it's only empathy that will bring healing. It's only compassion that will bring transformation.